You stayed here all week. You owe me $2,000. After I cooked, cleaned, and watched your kids? Every dollar! What are you doing with our deck? Your deck? It was never yours.
My daughter-in-law invited me to spend a week in her home, worked me from sunrise to bedtime, and then handed me a bill for $2,000. She looked proud when she placed that invoice beside my coffee. By the next morning, her smile was gone, my son was standing in the driveway, and a contractor was carrying away the expensive surprise she thought belonged to her. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 62 years old, a widow, and the grandmother of 2 children I love more than I can explain. I had spent most of my life believing that kindness should be given without keeping score. That week taught me something important. Kindness should be free, but it should never be mistaken for permission to use someone. Before I tell you how a simple family visit turned into the most insulting bill I had ever received, hello, everyone. Please tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what country you are in. I truly love knowing how far these stories travel, and I would especially like to know what you would have done in my place. The invitation came on a Thursday evening. My son, Jason, traveled several times a year for his job as a regional equipment manager. His trips usually lasted 3 or 4 days, but this one would keep him away for an entire week. His wife, Melissa, called me shortly after dinner and sounded warmer than she had in months. "Jason leaves Sunday morning," she said. "The children keep asking when they will see you again. Why don't you come stay with us for the week?" I did not hesitate. My granddaughter, Emma, was 8. My grandson, Thomas, had just turned 6. They lived only 90 minutes away. But school, work, and ordinary life had made our visits less frequent than I wanted. Several months had passed since I had spent more than an afternoon with them. "Are you sure?" I asked. "A full week is a long visit." "Of course I'm sure," Melissa replied. "It will be wonderful. The children miss you, and I could use the company." Those last words mattered to me. Melissa and I were not especially close, but I had always respected that she was Jason's wife and the mother of his children. I never arrived without calling or criticized how she ran her home. After my husband, Robert, died 9 years earlier, I had learned how easily grief can make a person cling too tightly to family. I built a full life of my own, volunteered at the library, kept a garden, and handled my finances without asking Jason for help. Still, I missed my family, so on Sunday morning I packed enough clothing for 7 days. I added 3 jars of homemade strawberry jam, 2 books for Emma, a wooden train set for Thomas, and the quilts I had spent almost 6 months making for them. The quilts were not fancy, but every square meant something. Emma's included yellow stars because she loved astronomy. Thomas's had blue trains crossing green fields. I had stitched their names into the bottom corners by hand. I also carried a secret I was excited to reveal. For nearly 2 years, Jason had talked about building a deck behind the house. He wanted a place where the family could eat outside, where the children could watch fireflies, and where Melissa could keep the herb garden she always said she wanted. The project never happened because there was always another expense. 3 months before my visit, I had quietly spoken with Robert's younger brother, Gerald, who owned a small contracting company. I paid for high-quality composite boards, support material, and most of Gerald's labor. The materials were delivered beneath a weatherproof tarp in Jason's backyard, but the purchase contract and receipts remained in my name until installation. Jason knew about the arrangement. Melissa only knew that he was trying to organize the deck. Gerald and I planned to begin work on the final morning of my visit. It was going to be my gift for Jason and Melissa's 10th wedding anniversary. At that point, the project had cost me a little more than $8,000. I did not want praise. I only wanted to see their family enjoy it. When I turned into their driveway that Sunday afternoon, Emma and Thomas were already waiting by the front window. They rushed outside before I had fully stopped the car. "Grandma!" Thomas shouted. Emma wrapped both arms around my waist. Thomas nearly knocked my purse from my shoulder. For the next 10 minutes, they talked at the same time, telling me about school, a missing tooth, a class project, and a bird's nest near the mailbox. Melissa appeared in the doorway with her phone in her hand. "You made good time," she said. She did not hug me, but that was not unusual. I carried my bags inside while the children fought over who would show me the guest room. We opened the books and spread the quilts across the children's beds. Emma traced the stars with her fingertips. Thomas found his name in the corner and asked how I had put it there. At dinner, I gave Melissa one of the jars of jam. She smiled and said it would be useful for the children's toast. Jason called from the airport before his flight, and the children passed the phone back and forth until an announcement interrupted him. That evening, I went to sleep feeling grateful. The truth began showing itself the next morning. I woke at 6:30 dressed and went downstairs to make coffee. In the daylight, I noticed things I had missed when I arrived. The kitchen sink was full of dishes. More dishes covered half the counter. A sticky ring had dried beneath several cups, and the trash container was so full that the lid would not close. School papers, shoes, and unopened packages formed a trail through the family room. 2 laundry baskets blocked part of the upstairs hallway. A third stood beside the washing machine, overflowing onto the floor. The downstairs bathroom had no clean hand towels. Crumbs covered the carpet beneath the dining table. I was surprised, but I did not judge immediately. Every household falls behind sometimes. Jason had been preparing for a trip. The children had school. Maybe Melissa had been sick or overwhelmed. I washed enough dishes to clear the sink and began making scrambled eggs. Emma and Thomas came downstairs a few minutes later, still wearing pajamas. "Mommy said you would make breakfast all week," Emma said. I paused with the spatula in my hand. "Did she?" Emma nodded. "She said this is grandma camp." I smiled because the children were watching, but something in me tightened. Melissa did not come downstairs until 11:40. She entered the kitchen wearing exercise clothing. Although she did not appear to have exercised, her eyes remained on her phone as she poured coffee from the pot I had made. Then she looked around the room. "The downstairs bathroom needs to be scrubbed," she said. "The refrigerator should be reorganized too. Please prepare the children's lunches for tomorrow, and make spaghetti tonight." I waited for a laugh or some sign that she realized how her words sounded. None came. "Good morning to you too," I said gently. She glanced up. "I'm just trying to make sure we use the week efficiently. I came to visit the children, Melissa. I don't mind helping, but I did not come as a housekeeper." Her mouth formed a small smile. "Nobody said you were a housekeeper. Families help one another." That sentence would have sounded reasonable if she had picked up a single plate. Instead, she carried her coffee upstairs. I told myself not to overreact. I cleaned the bathroom, mostly because the children used it. I emptied the old food from the refrigerator and wiped the shelves. I made spaghetti, packed 2 lunches, and washed the dishes afterward. Melissa came down for dinner 8 and left her plate on the table. Tuesday was worse. At breakfast, I found a handwritten list beside the coffee maker. Vacuum downstairs, wash children's clothing, clean guest bathroom, organize pantry, take children to park after school, chicken and vegetables for dinner. There was no please. There was no thank you. At the bottom, Melissa had written, "Finish before 4 if possible." I folded the paper and placed it in my purse. That was the first thing I saved. I still did much of the work, but I began paying closer attention. I had spent 30 years as an administrative coordinator for a medical supply company. My job required me to track expenses, document problems, and notice when numbers did not make sense. I found a small blue notebook in my purse and began recording what I did. Monday breakfast, 2 school lunches, refrigerator cleaning, bathroom, dinner, dishes, 3 hours with children. Tuesday breakfast, laundry, pantry, vacuuming, school pickup, park dinner, dishes. I also took photographs of the grocery receipts because Melissa kept adding items to a list and expecting me to pay. By Tuesday evening, I had spent $146 on food and household supplies. When I asked whether she wanted to reimburse me, she barely looked up. "We can sort it out later," she said. That answer stayed in my mind. Later sounded less like a promise and more like a warning. The children were the only reason I stayed. Emma helped me stir pancake batter in the mornings. Thomas followed me through the house with his wooden train. After school, we went to the park, collected smooth stones, and invented stories about the people who might have used them as treasure long ago. At night, I read to Emma and sat beside Thomas until he grew sleepy. Those hours were precious. But every time the children were occupied, Melissa appeared with another task. She wanted the shelves in her walk-in closet reorganized. She wanted me to move winter clothing into storage bins. She asked me to vacuum beneath the living room furniture and clean the baseboards in the hallway. When I told her my back was aching, she sighed as though I had disappointed her. "You said you wanted to be useful," she replied. "I had never said that. On Wednesday morning, the mystery of the invitation finally began to make sense. Melissa left her tablet on the kitchen counter while she showered. I did not touch it. I had no interest in searching through anyone's private messages. But while I was spreading jam on Thomas's toast, the screen lit up with a notification large enough to read from where I stood. The message came from a group labeled Moms Who Deserve More. It said, "How is your free cleaning week going?" Before the screen faded, another notification appeared. Did she fall for the grandma camp story? My hand stopped moving. Thomas asked why his toast was taking so long. I finished it, placed it on his plate, and forced myself to smile. I did not open the tablet. I did not need to. Those two notifications told me the invitation had not been spontaneous. Melissa had discussed this with other people before I arrived. She had not invited me because the children missed me. She had invited me because she wanted free labor. I took no photograph of the tablet because I did not want to cross a privacy line. I simply wrote the exact words and the time in my notebook. At noon, Melissa appeared with another list. "You can start on my closet after lunch," she said. "I'm taking the children to the Science Museum," I answered. Her expression changed. That wasn't on the schedule. It is now. For the first time that week, I left a task unfinished. I took Emma and Thomas to the museum. We watched an electricity demonstration, built a paper bridge, and ate beneath a model airplane. I did not regret $1. On the drive home, Emma said something that troubled me even more. "Mommy said we have to be extra nice, so you stay until Daddy gets back." "Why would she say that?" I asked. Emma shrugged. "Because she has her appointment on Friday." "What appointment?" "The hotel appointment." I did not question her further. Children should not be turned into witnesses in adult disagreements. That night, after the children went to bed, I asked Melissa directly, "Are you going somewhere on Friday?" She stared at me for half a second too long. "Just a wellness appointment?" "Ada Hotel." Her face hardened. "Emma talks too much. She is 8. She talks about her life. It's a day spa. I deserve one quiet day. You're here with the children. So I don't understand the problem." "The problem is that you invited me to visit. You did not ask whether I would provide a week of childcare while you took a private vacation. It is one day, Evelyn. Don't be dramatic." She went upstairs before I could answer. I called Jason that evening, but his phone went to voicemail. I did not leave details. I only asked him to call when he had time. He sent a text saying he was entering a client dinner and would contact me the following night. Thursday morning brought another surprise. I was searching a kitchen drawer for tape when I found an envelope from a local cleaning company. I would not have opened it, but it was already unsealed, and the top page was partly visible. Across the page in bold letters were the words "Service cancelled by client." I recognized the company. They charged about $40 an hour and had an excellent reputation. I left the envelope exactly where I found it. When Jason called that afternoon, I asked one careful question. "Did you arrange for a cleaning service while you were away?" He sounded confused. "Melissa was supposed to. I transferred money before I left, so she wouldn't have to manage everything alone." "How much money?" There was a pause. $2,600. $900 for a cleaner, $700 for groceries and prepared meals, and $1,000 for childcare and activities. Why? The answer made the entire week feel colder. Melissa had received money for cleaning, food, and childcare. Then she had canceled the paid help, invited me, used my labor, and allowed me to buy groceries with my own money. I could have told Jason everything at that moment. Instead, I said, "I need you to listen carefully tonight when you are somewhere private. This is not a conversation for a hallway." He promised to call after his meetings. That afternoon, Melissa handed me another sheet of paper and laughed. "Try not to be such a lazy grandmother today," she said. "You still haven't finished my closet." I looked at her for a long moment. I had raised Jason while working full-time. I had cared for Robert during 18 months of cancer treatment. I had maintained my own home, managed my own retirement, volunteered twice a week, and never asked Melissa to carry my responsibilities. I had nothing to prove to her. Still, I refused to create a scene in front of Emma and Thomas. I placed her list in my purse and said, "I will do what I have time to do." Then I went outside with the children. That evening, Jason called from his hotel room. I told him everything from the beginning. I described the condition of the house, the daily lists, the groceries, the insults, the canceled cleaning service, and the tablet notifications. I told him about Melissa's day, spy plan, and what Emma had said. For several seconds, he did not speak. "She called you a free cleaning service?" he finally asked. "Her friend did. I did not open the conversation, so I cannot tell you what Melissa wrote. But the notification asked whether I had fallen for the grandma camp story." Jason's breathing changed. "Mom, I'm sorry. You did not do this. It happened in my home. Then handle your home honestly. Do not handle it loudly." I heard him moving around his hotel room. A moment later, he said he had opened their joint bank account. The cleaning company had refunded the deposit 4 days before I arrived. The money had then been transferred into Melissa's personal account. The payment for childcare had gone there too. Jason found a charge for $1,800 from a luxury hotel and spa outside the city. It was not a one-day appointment. Melissa had reserved a 2-night package beginning Friday afternoon. She expected me to care for the children through Sunday while she enjoyed a private weekend. Jason was not scheduled to return until late Sunday night. "I'm changing my flight," he said. "Wait," I told him. "Come home Saturday morning, not tomorrow. I want one more day." "Why?" "Because if you confront her now, she will say I misunderstood everything. I want to see whether she tells me the truth about the weekend. And I want to leave with a clear head, not in the middle of shouting." Jason did not like the idea, but he trusted me. We agreed that he would land early Saturday and come directly home. He would not tell Melissa that his schedule had changed. I barely slept that night. On Friday morning, Melissa came downstairs wearing a white robe and carrying a small suitcase. "I told you I had an appointment," she said. "I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. You said it was a day spa. Plans changed. Who will care for the children tonight?" She gave me an impatient look. "You're already here. You did not ask me. Evelyn, they are your grandchildren." Most grandmothers would be thrilled. There it was again. She took my love for the children and used it as a tool against me. "Before you leave," I said, "I want to know when you plan to reimburse me for the groceries." Melissa slowly placed her suitcase by the door. Then she walked to a drawer, removed a folder, and placed a professionally printed sheet beside my coffee. Her expression was pleased, almost triumphant. "Actually," she said, "we need to settle your expenses first." I looked down. Guest room accommodation, $900. Food and household utilities, $650. Use of household amenities, $450. Total amount owed, $2,000. For a moment, I genuinely thought it was a cruel joke. Then I noticed the payment instructions. At the bottom, she had included her personal account information and written, "Full payment required before departure." I read the invoice twice before raising my eyes. "Melissa, you invited me, and you stayed in our house?" "I bought groceries. I cooked every meal. I cleaned almost every room, washed your laundry, packed the children's lunches, and cared for them every day." Her face remained calm. "Nobody forced you to do those things. You volunteered. The accommodation charges still stand. You expect me to pay you before I leave? Every dollar? What happens if I refuse?" She lifted one shoulder. "Then future visits may not be possible. Hospitality has limits." That sentence ended something inside me. Not my love for my son, not my love for my grandchildren, but the part of me that had continued making excuses for Melissa was finished. I thought about the $8,000 deck waiting beneath the tarp. I thought about the canceled cleaner, the transferred money, the spa suitcase by the door, and the way she had called me lazy while I washed her family's clothing. Anger burned through me, but I did not give her the reaction she wanted. I carefully folded the invoice and slipped it into my purse. "I don't have $2,000 available today," I said. You'll have to wait until tomorrow morning." Her smile returned. "That's fine, provided I receive the full amount." "Of course," I replied. She picked up her suitcase and left for the spa. The moment her car disappeared, I called Jason. "She did it," I said. "Did what?" She handed me a bill. When I told him the amount, he thought he had misheard me. $2,000, $900 for the guest room, $650 for food and utilities, and $450 for amenities. "You bought the food." "I know." "Mom, do not pay her." "I don't intend to." but I am going to answer her in the language she chose. I explained my plan. At first, Jason was silent. Then he asked one question. What about the deck? The materials still belong to me, and Gerald has not begun installation. I will use them at my own house. My back porch needs replacing. Jason sighed. I understand. I need you to say it clearly. I will not remove anything from your property without your agreement. You have my agreement. Cancel the gift. His voice sounded ashamed, but I reminded him again that the consequence belonged to Melissa, not to him. My next call was to my closest friend, Diane, a retired accountant I had known for more than 20 years. I read Melissa's invoice to her. At first, Diane said nothing. Then she asked, "Are you calling for advice, or are you calling because you know I own a printer?" "Both." She laughed once without humor. "Start listing your hours." I opened my blue notebook. We used rates lower than the local average. I did not want the document to look greedy. I wanted it to be impossible to dismiss as unreasonable. 7 days of childcare for 2 children, $1,400. Complete house, cleaning service, $800. Meal preparation and 10 packed lunches, $700. Groceries and household supplies, supported by receipts, $312. Total amount owed to me, $3,212. Diane formatted the document to match Melissa's invoice perfectly. She used the same spacing, the same headings, and even the same font. At the bottom, she added one final line. After deducting your $2,000 accommodation claim, remaining balance owed to Evelyn Carter, $1,212. Payment required immediately. I stared at the finished page and felt calmer than I had all week. This was not about whether a homemade breakfast had a market price. It was about holding up a mirror. Melissa had decided that family kindness could be converted into charges whenever doing so benefited her. I was simply applying her rule in both directions. Then I called Gerald. I need to change the deck plan. I told him. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "I'll be there at 6:30 tomorrow with the flatbed truck." My neighbor, Calvin, agreed to bring his pickup. By then I had purchased food, storage bins, cleaning products, and several unopened household items. I left anything the children needed. I was not going to punish them. That Friday evening, Emma and Thomas helped me make grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. We built a blanket fort in the living room and watched an old animated movie. I did not tell them about the bill. I did not criticize their mother. Adult truth should not be dropped onto children simply because an adult is angry. After they went to bed, I placed their quilts neatly over them. I kissed each child and promised that they could visit my house soon. Then I packed. I took my clothing, my receipts, my notebook, the 2 unopened jars of jam, and every item I had purchased that the family did not currently need. I left 1 jar of strawberry jam because Thomas adored it. The quilts stayed too. Those were gifts given from love. I would never attach a price to them. At 6:30 Saturday morning, Gerald arrived with his assistant and a flatbed truck. Jason had sent him a written message confirming that the uninstalled material could be removed. They lifted the tarp, checked every bundle against my purchase receipt, and began loading the composite boards. Nothing attached to the house was touched because nothing had been installed. Calvin arrived 20 minutes later and helped with my things. By 7:30, the backyard was empty except for the cleared space where the deck might have stood. At 8:15, Jason texted that he had landed. At 9, Melissa's car entered the neighborhood. She was back earlier than expected. Later, I learned that Jason had canceled the second night of the hotel reservation through their joint travel account. Melissa had received the notification and hurried home. She turned into the driveway, saw the trucks, and stopped so suddenly that her tires rolled over the edge of the grass. She climbed out wearing large sunglasses. "What is happening?" she demanded. Gerald continued securing the load. "The deck materials are being moved," I said. "Moved where?" "To my house." Her mouth fell open. "Those are ours." "Oh no, they were going to be your anniversary gift. The purchase contract is mine, the receipts are mine, and installation never began. You can't take our deck because of a disagreement." "There is no deck to take. There are materials I purchased and a gift I have decided not to complete." Her face flushed. "What have you done?" She shouted loudly enough for 2 neighbors to look toward us. At that exact moment, Jason's vehicle turned into the driveway. Melissa removed her sunglasses. The smug expression I had seen the day before vanished. "You're not supposed to be home," she said. Jason got out slowly. Neither were you, he replied. You told Mom you had a one-day appointment, but you booked 2 nights with money I gave you for childcare and cleaning. Melissa looked at me as though I had betrayed her. You called him? He is my son, I said. You used his money, his children, and my labor. Of course, I told him. This is between Jason and me. The moment you handed me a bill, part of it became between you and me. I walked into the kitchen. They followed. The children were still asleep upstairs, so all 3 of us kept our voices low. I poured coffee, placed Melissa's invoice beside her usual chair, and laid my invoice on top of it. What is this? She asked. My account of the week. She read each line. Her hands began to shake. This is ridiculous. Why, you cannot charge me for spending time with your grandchildren. Then you cannot charge me for sleeping in a room you invited me to use. That is different. Explain how. She opened her mouth, but no answer came. I pointed to the grocery line and placed every receipt beside it. Then I opened my blue notebook and showed the dates, tasks, meals, and hours. I did not charge for reading stories, making pancakes with Emma, or sitting beside Thomas at bedtime, I said. Those moments were love. I charged only for the work you assigned while calling me lazy. Oh, Jason placed his own papers on the table. He had printed the bank transfers, the cleaning company refund, the movement of money into Melissa's personal account, and the hotel charge. I gave you $2,600 because I didn't want you overwhelmed while I was away, he said. You canceled the help, brought my mother here under false pretenses, and spent most of the money on yourself. Melissa's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained defensive. I needed a break. Then you could have asked for one, Jason answered. You could have told me the truth. You could have asked Mom whether she wanted to keep the children for a weekend. Instead, you lied to everyone and tried to make money from the person who helped you. It was only a joke, she said. I unfolded her invoice and pointed to the account details. Jokies do not include payment instructions. She looked at Jason. Are you really taking her side over your wife? His reply was quiet. I am taking the side of what happened. Being my wife does not make you right. That was the moment the confusion ended. Until then, Melissa had counted on every relationship protecting her from consequences. She assumed I would stay silent to see the children. She assumed Jason would defend her to preserve peace. She assumed her friends would laugh, and the money would remain hidden inside accounts no one checked carefully. She had mistaken our desire for peace for weakness. Jason did not shout. He did not threaten divorce in front of the children. He simply described what had to happen next. The remaining spa reservation was canceled. Melissa would return the money transferred for cleaning, food, and childcare to their joint household account. She would reimburse my $312 in grocery costs immediately. As for the remaining $900 on my counter, invoice Jason left the decision to me. I looked at Melissa. Your bill says I owe you $2,000, I said. Mine says you owe me $3,212. If your invoice is valid, the balance due to me is $1,212. If mine is not valid, then neither is yours. She stared at the table. Choose, I said. After a long silence, she whispered, neither invoice is valid. Good. Then tear yours up. She picked up the page. For a moment, I thought she might refuse. Then she tore it in half, tore it again, and placed the pieces on the table. I did the same with the labor portion of mine. I kept the grocery receipts. You still owe me $312 for money I spent after you received $700 for food, I said. That part is not symbolic. Melissa transferred it before I left. The financial consequence did not end there. Because the deck materials were still mine, Gerald installed them at my house during the following month. My old back porch had needed replacement for years. The project that would have been Melissa's anniversary gift became a safe, beautiful place where I could drink morning coffee, read, and watch birds near my garden. Jason and Melissa had to save for their own deck. Jason insisted on counseling, transparent household accounts, and an honest discussion about how overwhelmed Melissa had actually felt. I supported that decision. What she did was cruel, but cruelty often grows in problems people refuse to name. Understanding a problem, however, does not erase responsibility for it. Melissa later admitted that she had felt trapped at home and jealous of the freedom Jason's work trips seemed to give him. Her friends in the message group encouraged her to take back control. One of them suggested billing me as a joke. Melissa turned that joke into a real invoice because, in her words, she wanted to prove she could make people respect her boundaries. The painful irony was obvious. She tried to create a boundary by violating everyone else's. I did not forgive her immediately. For the next 2 months, I saw Emma and Thomas only at my house or in public places. Jason brought them. I remained polite to Melissa, but I did not accept invitations to stay overnight. I also stopped solving problems nobody had asked me to solve. That change was difficult. Generous people often believe saying no will make them cold. It does not. A boundary does not cancel love. It gives love a safe place to live. 3 months after that terrible week, Melissa came to my house alone. I was sitting on my new porch when she walked through the side gate. She carried the last jar of strawberry jam, now empty and washed clean. Thomas asked me to return the jar. She said I invited her to sit, but I did not rush to make her comfortable. For several minutes, she stared across the yard. Then she apologized, not the quick kind of apology that begins with, "If I hurt you." She named what she had done. She admitted that the invitation was dishonest, that the work lists were demeaning, that the word lazy was cruel, and that the invoice had been designed to humiliate me. "I thought you would pay because you wouldn't want to lose access to the children," she said. That admission hurt more than the bill. "You use my love for them as leverage," I replied. "I know. That cannot happen again. I won't." I did not tell her everything was fine. It was not. I told her trust would return through repeated honest behavior, not through one conversation. She nodded. Before leaving, she touched the porch railing. "This would have been our deck." "It would have." "It looks beautiful here." "Yes," I said. "It does." There was no need to say more. 6 months later, our family was not perfect, but it was more honest. Melissa found part-time work at a local fitness studio and used part of her income to hire a cleaner twice a month. Jason adjusted his travel schedule where possible. They planned childcare together instead of assuming a grandmother would appear whenever needed. When they asked me for help, they asked clearly. They accepted no as a complete answer. And when I said yes, they thanked me. Emma and Thomas spent many Saturday afternoons on my new porch. We ate toast with strawberry jam, read books, and watched fireflies rise from the garden at dusk. The children never learned the details of the argument. They only knew that the deck project moved to Grandma's house and that their parents had gone through a difficult season. That was enough. If I had to summarize what happened, I would say this. My daughter-in-law invited me for a family visit, secretly used me as unpaid childcare and household help, and then demanded $2,000 for the privilege. I documented the work, discovered that my son had already given her money to hire help, and answered her invoice with one of my own. When the truth came out, she lost the expensive deck I had planned to give her, repaid the groceries, faced my son with the evidence, and learned that family love cannot be turned into a business only when it benefits one person. And what did this story teach me? It taught me that generosity needs boundaries. It taught me that silence may prevent an argument today while allowing disrespect to grow tomorrow. It taught me to keep receipts when numbers do not make sense, to stay calm when someone wants an emotional reaction, and to protect children from adult conflict without protecting adults from the consequences of their choices. Most of all, I learned that saying no does not make a loving mother or grandmother selfish. Sometimes no is the word that finally teaches people how to treat your yes. Thank you for watching and listening to my story. Please like this video and comment below. Tell me where you are listening from. And tell me honestly what you would have done when Melissa placed that $2,000 bill beside the coffee. As for me, I still believe kindness should be given without keeping score, but I will never again let anyone confuse my kindness with a debt I owe them. Melissa handed me a bill for staying in her home. In the end, she learned a lesson that cost far more than $2,000. Never send a bill to the woman who has been quietly paying the price.